Yeah, I think we really need a paradigm shift in Europe in the way we think about production in the post-neoliberal world order. Because that for me is very clear. The neoliberal free trade-based WTO model type of globalization is over. Many people in European politics have not understood that yet, and they still live with these glasses of the old world order and look at the present system. Whereas the Chinese and the Americans are already playing with the new rules. So as someone said in a previous debate, we are trying to play football, but the other team is playing American football. So obviously, it is then very difficult to compete. So I think Europe really needs to understand that we need to move towards this more Europe story, made in Europe story, not 100%, but at least as much as possible. And there we see this disconnection indeed between the upstream and the downstream part, because we are used to the world order of decades ago, where it was perfectly normal just to focus on the high added value downstream high-end industry sectors, and we just sourced our materials from elsewhere in the world. We export the moral, social, environmental responsibility, even for the refining actually, and we just bought the materials in cheaply, and we were able to do this. But as a result, we have created an industry here in Europe where we have loads of single units, and they are not connected to each other. So they all operate as single units. They all try to maximize their profitability, but there is no integration. There is no master plan on top of that to make sure that you have these different units working together, that you have off-take agreements, and that you have a system in which they can all prosper at the same time. But for that to come to fruition, we really need a complete change in political mindset that will have to fundamentally be different and respect or understand that the world has changed and moved on considerably, and that we will need to produce our own materials from our own mines to a certain extent, not 100% for anything, but at least for some, and do the same thing for the refinery, complemented by imports from outside of Europe. But if you look at the battery value chain, and the key element, of course, being lithium at this moment, and let's be honest, what is the present situation for lithium in Europe? We have 0 operational lithium mines. We have 0 operational lithium refineries. There are 2 being built, but they're not operating yet. And we have, as far as I know, 0 commercial scale lithium-ion battery recycling plants at this moment. So our scores for lithium are hopeless at the moment. So how are we going to change that? Well, we will have to develop the refineries. We will have to develop the battery plants, the PCAM plants, the CAM plants, and the final gigafactories. But if you then see what we're actually doing, I already mentioned the example of BASF in Finland, we then block such a plant from operating. Is that really the best we can do? I mean, that's completely insane. And that is in a country, Finland, that we use as one of the best examples in Europe, that a country with some kind of a master plan, thinking about vertical integration from mine to a clean tech product. So if even in such a country we cannot get it right, I mean, what are we going to do in Portugal or Spain?
Okay, so you're calling for this vertical integration, this change of approach. Who does it? When do they do it? Because we're talking about urgency. How does that manifest? So the idea is clear, but how do we make that happen then?
For that we need people who are actually into the European politics, but this is terra incognita, as we say in Latin. It's unknown territory, because it's completely against the DNA of our economic European system of all those decades. We've always thought in terms of individual units. And we have to now learn from the Chinese, because the Chinese have been brilliant in setting this up. They had this long-term master plan. They have looked at the vertical integration with all the different units. They've accepted that there would be losses within that chain for some players for some time, and it changes. Sometimes it's upstream, sometimes it's downstream, but they have this master plan. They have this view on top of everything. So I'm not the person who has to do it. I'm working for a university. So I am a metallurgist.